Kakadosh Baruch Hu Masechet Yevamot Daf Tzadik Bet Amud Aleph. Tizku Shrim Rabboni over toward it's 92A1. We are by the two dots, which is 3 lines down. Last word of the line. Niset al pi bedin. So we said that if a woman comes and she got married through one witness. Remember, we're talking about the case where the woman, right, the husband goes to Medirat Yam, and all of a sudden she happens to die. Yeah, what is that? Sorry, he happens to die, right? All of a sudden, right? And she gets, the one witness comes and he says the husband dropped dead. So it's only one witness. So he said, she gets married through Bedin, which means the Bedin is going to come and it's going to say she could get married. That's Al Pi Bedin. So we already said that she has to get divorced from both of the husbands and she's going to be put up from the Korban. Okay, that's what we said in the Mishnah. Okay, so now we're starting today's daf. Amar Zeireh, says Zeireh, Leta lematnitin, right? Our Mishnah is not halachal maaseh. Why? Midetani be midrasha, from the fact that the writer taught in the Bet Midrash, the Tana be midrash, what we learned in the Bet Midrash, right? This is talking about that if, right, to do with paskening al pi bedin. If right now it was a cloudy day, right? We already had that the last few days, so mamash min hashamayim, right? Cloudy days. Ve'uru bedin sheshakach hama. So imagine bedin come and they say, listen, it's already Shekiah. Therefore, since it's already Shekiah, it's not Shabbat anymore. Now the people, they said, okay, fine. It's not Shabbat, it's Motzei Shabbat, right? You know how people are. The second you say it's Motzei Shabbat, even if it's before Motzei Shabbat, they're already running, right, to get out of Shabbat. Yeah? What are you laughing at? Yeah? So he says, Ulvasof Zarcha. All of a sudden, it becomes daylight. Right? That just happened actually on Shabbat, if you remember. And with all the storm and everything that passed, it looked mamash like dark. It looked like at 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock. It looked like it was, I don't know what. You understand why? Because of all the rain. And all of a sudden, it comes 2 o'clock. It stopped raining, and it looked like it was in the middle of the summer. Like it looked like mamash at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so it's the thing. All of a sudden, right, they thought it was Shekiah. All of a sudden, the day cleared up, and all of a sudden, again, now they already did melacha to the Bedin. The Bedin told them Shakach Hama, that it's already nighttime, and therefore they're allowed to. It's Motzei Shabbat. So they started doing melacha, and all of a sudden, it was actually daytime. En zo hora'ah ela ta'ut. This is not a hora'ah, which is a mistake, which is going to exempt them to come, right, and do a korban chatat, but rather it's considered, right, a ta'ut, and therefore whoever does this is obligated to bring a korban. Okay, that means again, it's not something which is exempting you from a korban chatat. It's actually something which is going to obligate you from a korban chatat. So therefore, in the case, in the case of our Mishnah, the fact that Bedin came and permitted her to get married, it's not considered a mistake, right, in the facts, right, because the words of the witness made the Bedin make a mistake, and therefore, right, the Bedin did not permit her to get married. The question was, is she permitted to get married, right, based on the evidence that they were shown? So the Bedin said that according to this one aid, the husband's dead, and therefore she could come. Now, when the husband comes back, it comes out that the aid was not true. So therefore, since it was not done mechamat hora'ah bedin, but rather because of yidiyah mut'it. Yidiyah mut'it means it was like wrong evidence. It's like false evidence. So therefore, the woman is obligated to bring a chatat, not like the Mishnah. You understood? That means one more time, it's not that the bedin are the ones that they made a mistake. According to the evidence which they have in front of them, they didn't make any mistake. They paskin according to the halakha. The mistake was the witness that came and caused them to make the mistake. Right? It was an external factor that made them make the mistake. According to what they did, it wasn't like they made a mistake in the halakha. According to the halakha, what they gave, that was a perfect psak. It was a mistake in the evidence which was presented to them. Since it was a mistake in the evidence presented to them, that's why it's considered a mistake, not mitzad them, but rather mitzad the ed, and therefore she does have to bring the korban chata. Rav Nachman comes to the arguments, and he says, so Rav Nachman says it's like our Mishnah. What does that mean? It's like our Mishnah, that she stood up from the chatat. Why? Because of what the Mishnah said. So this comes out, it's a machloke between Zeiri and Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman, this is actually the psak of Bedin, which is considered a hora'ah, and therefore she stood up in the Kurban. Why? Because it's not only just stamped, they're basing it on the Edechad. In the entire Torah, one Ed is not believed. So here, he is believed. The one Ed is going to be believed. My time on what's the reason? Right? Obviously, it's because of Rabbi, which means like this. The way that Rav Nachman is bringing, remember that Rav Nachman was a Dayan, and therefore we pass him usually like Rav Nachman and Dinei Mamonot, and we see that. Here, at the end of the day, one Ed is never believed in the Torah. So if the one Ed is never believed in the Torah. No. Ed Echad Eman B'Yisurim, that's something else, but not to do with this. To do with testimony that you need, Ed Echad is never believed. Right? Here, they are believed. So if they're believed, so the fact that they are believed, what happens is that we have obviously a special intent that came through a betin. You're right, the betin were relying upon the Echad, 100%, relying upon it. But at the end of the day, it had to be through a betin. The betin, how were the ones that had to give the psak. If it wasn't the psak, it doesn't exist. Amar Rava comes and he says, right? Teida the tautu. So Rava is now going to come and say like Zeiri, not like Rav Nachman. And he's also going to bring a proof. Teida tautu, how do you know it's a taut? And therefore, since it's a taut, it's not considered a shkogeget, and therefore she's obligated at korban. Imagine right now the bedim would come and say that a certain piece of cheleb or dam was mutar. Remember that we're not allowed to eat cheleb in a Torah. Cheleb is the prohibited fats, right? There's shuman and cheleb. Shuman is the permitted fats, and cheleb is the prohibited fats, right? This is also only in a domesticated animal. It's a wild animal, it's permitted. Okay, so now, or you have dam of an animal, right? Blood is prohibited. And then what happened was, then they went and they said, no, you know what? It's actually prohibited. When they go back and they say that it's permitted, right? That means they come and they retract again. What happens is, but we don't even pay attention to it, right? Why? Because, what is it? They're going back and forth. At the beginning, they said that it's permitted. 5 minutes later, they said it's prohibited. 5 minutes later, they said it's permitted. What's going to go on over here? But if one Ed will come and say that the husband died, Shanina, we permit it. If two witnesses come, Asagna, we're going to prohibit her. But if there was another one Ed that comes, right? Shanina, now we're going to permit it, which means, right? That means it comes out that the Edut is not going to be nisted through two Edim, but rather one Ed. My time, what's the reason? Right? It's not because it's actually a taut, which means the fact that you're going to have one Ed afterwards, right? You're going to see, right, that this concept, right? So it says over here, way here as follows. They say that even though in a Hanani like Rav Nachman, that obviously it had to be a horat bedin in order to accept the testimony of one witness. But later on, after that psak, that this is the way that they already give their guidelines or general rules or however you want to call it exactly, right? Their protocols. From then on, we are now relying upon, right, the edechad and not alpi the horat bedin. And therefore, that's why he's bringing a proof that he's saying that at the end of the day, you're relying upon the horat bedin. And therefore, it's like Zeiri and not like Rav Nachman. Okay, Eliezer. So says the Eliezer, right? Savar, he's going to come and he's going to hold the Tautu. He also holds like Zeiri. So now this is actually becoming a much more complicated halacha anymore, because now it's not only anymore, right? We had a Mishnah. The Mishnah said like Rav Nachman. Zeiri went against the Mishnah from the Bet HaMidrash. Rav Nachman went against, right, Zeiri, and he says that the Emet is considered a hora'ah, right? Then Rava, and now Rabbi Eliezer, both from like Zeiri as well. The Tanya was learned to the Braita. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yikov adin tahar v'tavi chatat shmina. Not only that, we're not going to exempt the woman from a chatat because of the din. The opposite. You have to mamash, she has to bring a big fat chatat, right? A big fat one, right? That's just to show you where the, so he says, you have to go to Omek Adin and say, no, but she actually does have to bring a big one. If you're going to tell me it's a taut, shumachi mateh korban, so that's why you have to bring a korban. But if you're going to tell me it's hora'ah, why is she going to bring a korban? So says the Gemara, no. Says, no, maybe it's a different reason. Not because Rabbi Eliezer holds like, right, Zeiri, that really be'emet it's going to be considered a ta'ut and not a hora'ah. Maybe be'emet Eliezer holds that when you have a yachid that he does through a hora'ah betin, really be'emet it is a hora'ah betin. But when you have a yachid which does a hora'ah betin, he's going to be chayav chatat. So therefore, over here, it's the same halacha. Not because we're saying that it's going to be a ta'ut and not a hora'ah. He's not going to tell it's hora'ah. But if a yachid does like the hora'ah, which means if the yachid does like this betin, he is obligated to korban chatat. So answers the Gemara, if so, what does it mean, this explanation? Yikov adin tahar, which means that he says it betokif like that. If he just says stam b'derech klal, in a general rule, that any yachid does like a hora'ah betin, that he's going to be chayav, so therefore it's a general rule. But mazeh yikov adin tahar, to come and you have to mamash, like, you're going to uproot the mountain with the thing, you're going to go to the depths. So obviously it means that really be'emet was trying to give a psak in this case, nothing to do with a general rule. So because of that, also Rabbi Eliezer holds like ze'ide. Okay? Oruhu betin linaseh. So the betin comes and they told her to get married, right? Now what happened is that she went and kilkila. So she's chayavet to korban, right? Why? Because they only permitted it to get married, not to fool around, right? Not to go and start sleeping around. What does it mean kilkila? What does it mean she went off or she mekulkelet? How do you say mekulkelet? I don't know. Huh? Immorally. Okay, she went immorally. So Rabbi Elazar says zinta. Well, what does it mean? She had snut. Rabbi Yochanan says almana lekohen gadol b'usha v'chametza lekohen idiot. No, we're even talking about a case where she's prohibited to get married. So, for example, she now is considered an almana. She went and she got married to a kohen gadol, right? That's also kilkila. Why? Because even though we permitted her to go and to get remarried, we didn't tell her except for a kohen gadol, right? She's not going to get married to a kohen gadol. She's an almana, right? Or b'usha v'chametza to a kohen idiot. Let's say she now had to do ibum, and now they came and did chalitza to her. So now she went and she got married to a regular kohen. Same thing. She got married to somebody that's prohibited to her. So Manda marries Zinta, according to the Manda that says Zinta, so Kolshken Almana Lekohen Gadol, right? Why? Because at the end of the day, if Zinta, that's halacha, so Kolshken, she got married to somebody to be sued, for sure that's going to be a suit. But according to the Manda Almana Lekohen Gadol, Zinta, no, I would say no, my time was cheese. The Amara, because she say, you guys were the ones that made me a pluya. If you made me a pluya, she's going to go after, she's going to be Zinta. Okay, fine, what's up? So Tanaka would say that Rabbi Yochanan, we learned according to Rabbi Yochanan, that it's Almana Lekohen Gadol. So he says, on every single biyah she's going to be chayavet korban. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, these words are Rabbi Eliezer. Said no, one korban for everything. Umodim chachamim Rabbi Eliezer, but the chachamim are going to be modim to Rabbi Eliezer. Yeah, she'im niset l'chamisha bnei adam. Whatever she married to 5 different people, then she's going to be chayavet korban on kol echad ve'echad hol ve'rem gufim mechulakin. So there are different bodies, so she's chayavet on every single one. Right, right? So within 1 year, boom, one, and she kept on getting married. You understand? Okay? There's a Mishnah, so the Bet Amud Aleph in the middle, right towards the bottom. That's right now, a woman that her husband went with her son to Medinat Yam. Okay, so now they come and they tell her, Met Balech. So first the husband died, and then the son died. Right? So it comes out that she doesn't need ibum. Why doesn't she need it? Because remember, if the husband dies, right, we go, that's it. Why? Because she still has a son, right? And therefore, right, she doesn't need to be ibum. And he said that she gets married. And afterwards they come and they say the opposite. It was the opposite. First the son died, and then the husband. So now when the husband dies, there's no child. If there's no child when the husband dies, is she ever getting ibum? Yeah. There was never a child at all. No. So one more time. So the Mishnah one more time. So one more time. The husband went with the son. If the husband died and then the son, so she still had a son at the time of death. He has a son at the time of death. She doesn't have to do either. But if it was the opposite, she got married. All of a sudden they come and say it was the opposite. So then what happens? It says in the Mishnah, Tetzeh, she has to leave the second husband. Why? Because obviously that means right? That she has to do yibum to the first husband, to the brother, right? To the first husband's brother. The vlad rishon, the acharon mamzer. So here in the footnotes, it speaks about what does it mean, vlad rishon and acharon. Basically, the blood means if she already had a child from the second husband, or even if after finding out she has a child from the second husband, the child's a mamzer. Now, technically speaking, why is it mamzer? She's a yevamah, right? That she needed to do yibum. If you have a woman that she's a yevamah, she needed to do yibum, and then she goes and she has a relationship with somebody else, is that karet or is that a lav? It's a lav. Yeah, not the option. She has to do yibum, but she didn't do yibum. She went and she got married to somebody else. So it's a lav. So therefore, it says in the footnote, here we're going according to the shita of Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Akiva, right? He says over here, it's a mamzer from love, because if it wasn't, that's what it says here. He says, which is only isul love, where there's no karet to bita. Right? No, that is according to Rashi, this is a mamzer. This Mishnah is going to Rabbi Akiva. We don't pass with Rabbi Akiva. Because remember, according to Rabbi Akiva, even there's mamzer even from chayve lav. We pass not like Rabbi Akiva that there's only mamzerut from chayve karet, not chayve lav. This is a lav, right? Yevamah going to the marketplace is a lav. It's not karet. It's a lav. It's a negative commandment. It's not karet. So very important to remember. Next, amrula met benech. So imagine right now they told her, right? The son died first, and then it was a husband. So therefore, she needed to be moved. Why? Because he died without children, right? The Gemara is going to speak about later on when we're talking about two edim or one edim. But okay, v'niti amma. She comes and she does ibum, but that's halacha. She has to do ibum. And afterwards they told her chiluf aliyot barim. It was the opposite. That first the husband died. So now here there's chiyuv karet. Here there is a chiyuv karet. Why is it chiyuv karet? Because now it's a brother going with the sister-in-law. That's chiyuv karet. It was only permitted because of yibum. But if there's no yibum, it's mamash karet. So therefore, for both of them. So it says tetzeh ve'avnad mamzer. So this is lechule right? Mamzer, correct? That's what it says over here. Because it's eshetach according to everybody. Shuba karet. Therefore, even according to Chachamim that argue with Akiva, it's also going to be mamzeri. So here it's according to lechule it's mamzeri. Okay. Next, third case. Amrula mepalech. What happens if they told her that the husband died? Then he said, right? So she comes and she gets married. And afterwards they came and told her, now again, here we're not talking about anymore about the son. Nothing to do with the son. There's no son. Right? They went and they told her the husband died. She went and she got married, right? And afterwards, they told her, Kayamaya. So basically, obviously, she had children or whatever it is, right? So obviously she had children. All of a sudden, they come back and they say, no, sorry, right? He just died now, right? So Tetzeh, she has to leave. The first child of Mamzer, the second one that is after the death of the husband is Mamzer, which means one more time. He is married to her husband. They come and they say the husband died. So she went and she got married. Let's say she already has children, right? And she gets married. All of a sudden, she has a child. No ego. She went and she got married to somebody else. All of a sudden, she has a child. After the child, somebody comes and says, by the way, let me say, now he died. Meaning he was alive and now he died. So that child that she had before is a mamzer. But any future children that she has now is not going to be a mamzer. Now, but it says over here though, tetzeh, she does have to divorce the husband. What if she? So it says the Mishnah, right, that the first child is a mamzer, but then afterwards it's not a mamzer, right? If she actually continued having children from him, even though it just said over here, right? Even though it says over here that technically she had to, okay, some people want to say that it's a mamzer to Rabbanan. Okay, fine. There's still sort here. But technically speaking, the second child that would come afterwards is not a mamzer, but they said tetzeh. She had to actually divorce the second husband. Next, Amrula met balech. They come and they tell her the husband died. Then it katsha, she does kiddushin. She doesn't do nisui, kiddushin. And all of a sudden the husband comes back alive. She could go back to the original husband. Even though he comes and he gives her a get. She's not still up in the kiuna, right? That means usually if she got a get from a second husband, she's never allowed to go back to the original husband. Here we only obligate her to get a get just because we didn't want to say that a married woman goes under the shuk without a get. But technically she was never married because the first husband was still alive. So therefore, she's getting a get just for the show. But that's not going to posel ota from the kiuna, and it's not going to posel ota from her husband. Yeah? Okay? So now it says the Gemara, it always takes 10 minutes to understand what's going on. Fine. So he says over here like this. So here, the Gemara says like this. Again, we're talking about the first case. And in the first case, we said it was the first child and the second child. So it's going to be the first child and the second child. So said the Gemara, Ilay might be going to tell me Rishon is before Shmuah, Acharon is Lachar Shmuah. Just leave me avlad. I'm saying the first one is before the Shmuah, right? And the Acharon is after the Shmuah. Remember, the Shmuah is that he's still alive, right? It's not that he's still alive. That which one was born first, which died first. Sorry. So leave the avlad mamzer. Just tell me that the blood is mamzer. So it's like, no, we should be going to leave the sefer. We wanted to learn the sefer. The sefer says Amrula mepalech unisek. Here we're not talking about the child. So since in the third case we said that the husband dies and then Shalom, and then afterwards they came and they said no kayam hayab met that he was still alive and now he died. So Adishon mamzer and Acharon is not a mamzer. So that's what we said in the first case also that Adishon and Acharon that they're both mamzerim. Meaning we wanted to learn the Rishon Acharon because later on there was a Rishon Acharon which is not a mamzer. So we taught the Rishon Acharon is a mamzer in the first case. Tanra we went to the Raita. Zod Rabbi Akiva. So our Mishnah at the beginning, if you remember, the first case was Rabbi Akiva. That he says that Kiddushin is not going to be tofes b'chayv lavin, and therefore the blood is a mamzer. There's no mamzer in the Yevama, and therefore since there's no mamzer from the Yevama, so for the first case was no mamzer. The lema, so ask the Gemara, why don't we just say that en mamzer b'chayv lavin? Why do we have to say en mamzer Yevama? Just say en mamzer b'chayv lavin. And so the Gemara, Haitana, Aftana de Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva Damar chayv lavin de she'er. Having mamzer, chayv lavin grade al mamzer. There's one Tana that holds that even Shittat Rabbi Akiva, there's two different Tanaim in Rabbi Akiva. One Tana said Rabbi Akiva that according to Rabbi Akiva, it's always going to be chayv lavin is always going to be a mamzer. According to the second Shita, only when there's going to be chayv lavin from she'er, from the wife, because of kurbah, right? Because of closeness, kinship. That's when it's going to be a mamzer. But if it's going to be chayv lavin, that's not of close kinship, but none of close family members, it's not going to be a mamzer. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, now we're talking about machloket of kiddushin tosim by a Yevamos Daf Tzadik Bet Amud Bet. Amar Rav says, right? So again, one second, it's Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. Minayin shek kiddushin tosim Yevama. How do we know that kiddushin is tofes Yevama? Shnei Masechet Yevamot Daf ye ish met chutz al izdad. That eshet hamet cannot go be outside, right, for each zad. Lo teheba havaya. What does it mean lo tiyeh? Lo tiyeh means that there should not be havaya, which means kiddushin should not be tofsim lezad. Shmuel says no, ba'aniyutenu, right? Which means we don't know how to explain the pasuk. That's why it's mikhat get. That's why she needs a get. So that means basically we're just going to say it's a fake, right? She needs a get, right, from the second husband. But it's not mamash 100%. So it says mesafte leili Shmuel. So that's safek to Shmuel. Hay lo tiyeh eshet hamet. So why? The safek of Shmuel was that when it says the pasuk lo tiyeh eshet hamet achutz al izdad, is it just coming and giving us a love, right? Or is it coming to teach you that there's no kiddushin tofsim? That means, is it stam a love, or that there's no kiddushin tofsim? So Elmaleh Ramadi bar Rachel, the Ravashi, interesting that he's calling him bar Rachel. Obviously, the father was something else. It says over here, oh yeah, she was captured by the goyim, therefore she became pregnant from a goy, and then afterwards, right? And then afterwards he went and he got married to Ramani. Okay, so because of this, he says since the father was not so Jewish, so because of Kavodo, they called him the name of the mother and not the name of the father. Right? So Elmaleh Ramani bar Rachel to Ravashi. This is what Rabbi says. Like Shemuel, which means that Shemuel just said about we need to get, but we don't say that Kiddushim are not to see. So Amar Ravashi says, another said like Shemuel, what happens now if the Yavam was a Kohen and she went and she got married to the Shuk? So now what happens is that she cannot go back to him, right? Because she just went to a Zak, right? So Choletzla v'Shadyan. So then she does Chalitza, and then she's permitted to her husband. Remember, she got married to a second husband, but technically speaking, now she had to do Yibum. So now she can't do Yibum. Why can't she do Yibum? Because the guy's a Kohen. So therefore, what does he do? He just does Chalitza, And once he does chalitza, now he's allowed to be with the husband. So itagure itga. So says the Gemara, what? Right? What the husband is going to benefit from the fact that it was done by Abena? Im ken, if so, matzim choten iskar. Says what? Choten is going to get iskar. He's going to gain. He's going to benefit from it. How could be in this case? Right? The guy benefited from it. So says the Gemara, no. Says no. You're right. The Gemara is not that if the husband was a Kohen, the Kohen does chalitza and now she goes back to the second husband. It's not. The second husband benefited from such a case. But rather, no, you're right. If the Yavam, right, the Yevamah was Israel, right? That means basically the Yevamah, that means the one of the that was doing the Yibum is Israel. The second husband gives her a get, and then she could go and do Yibum to the first original husband. So the second husband is not Choten Iskar. He doesn't get benefit. He has to give her a get. So he never benefits. It's actually she goes back to the original husband, to the meaning like to the brother, right? To the brother. Amar Gidal Amar Chia Bar Yosef Amar Rav. Says Gidal Yosef Amar Rav. Yevamah Kiddushin and Ba Nisuin Yesh Ba. To do the Yevamah to the Shuk, Kiddushin and Ba. There's no Kiddushin, but there is Nisuin, meaning that Kiddushin are not seen in the Yevamah, but Nisuin is Tofes Yevamah. So says the Gemara, Kiddushin and Ba Nisuin and Yevamah. I said, hold a second. How could there be Nisuin without Kiddushin? It doesn't exist. You always have first Kiddushin, and right, and then you have Nisuin. Kiddushin is the first step of marriage, and then there's Nisuin. How could you do that? He says, no, you're right. Ema Kiddushin ben Nisuin. You're right. Both of them. There's nothing there. Meaning it's not that there's no Kiddushin, there is Nisuin, there's nothing. So Vibai Temo, if you want to answer, my Nisuin Yeshba, what does it mean that she does have Nisuin? His nut. Right? The Nisuin is that it's considered like snut. Like Rav Nuna. Rav Nuna says, Shomenet Yevam Shefinta, Asura Yevamah. Means it's not that it's a real marriage. It's like znut. Now, according to Rav Nuna, he says something incredible. If this woman that she's a Shomenet Yavam comes and she has znut with somebody else before going to her Yavam, she becomes prohibited to her Yavam. And he has to do chalitza to permit it to other people. She cannot do Yibum. She mamash, zinta, gaman. There's nothing what to talk about. If you can answer another answer, okay, this Gemara is going to be Leel, Pe'alef Amudal. Interesting what halacha is. Later on also Tzadikei, Tzadivav, and Gitin, and Sotav. Rabbi Tema, if you can answer a third answer, Le'olam Kedam Mi'ikara. Really, Be'emet, right? It's going to be like what we just said at the beginning, right? He comes and he says, right? There's a huge phenomenon. Really, Be'emet, he said like the beginning, that really Be'emet, right? It's the necessity of a get. Kiddushin and Bab, it's really Be'emet saying that there is no Kiddushin and therefore she doesn't need a get. But there is Nisuin, by Nisuin she does need a get. The reason why Chachamim said that she needed a get is because if you're going to come and you're going to say that the Yevamah is going to go out from her husband without a get, so then they're going to say that also the same halacha would apply with a woman that her husband went to Minat Hayam and she got married through an Edechad. You're going to say she's going to go out from the second husband without a get. And obviously she does need a get. So because of the case of Ba'ala Olech Minat Hayam and then one Ed coming and saying that he died and then she went and she got married. So therefore there that she needs a get. So therefore also by our case, we're going to say that she needs a get. Okay? Fine. Amar Rabbi Yanai, says Rabbi Yanai, B'chabura nimnu vegamru. Right? What does that mean, B'chabura? When Chachamim came in, right, to be done in the halacha, they went and they said, right, they were hichriu, right, and they went and they all said, en kiddushin tofsin b'yevamah. So there's no kiddushin which is going to be tofes b'yevamah. So Amar le Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, Rabbi, no mishnatenu mizo. He says, what are you talking about? Is it not the Mishnah? Meaning, why do you have to come and you have to give this in a chabura? Because it says, b'chabura nimnu vegamru, en kiddushin tofsin b'yevamah. I thought we just said that. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he tells Rabbi Yanai was his rabbi, right, of Rabbi Yochanan. So he comes and he says, Rabbi, is that on a Mishnah? What's going on? The Tanam is we learned on a Mishnah and Kiddushin. How many Isha Areya Mekudeshet Li, right? If somebody's going to come, right? And yeah, he comes and he says, Areya Mekudeshet Li La'achar Shenit Gai. Right? So somebody's going to come and he's going to tell a woman, a Bat Israel, you're going to get married to me after I convert. Right? So imagine, the guy's a goy now. And he comes and he says, after I convert, you're my wife. Or after you convert, you're my wife. Right? So he went to a goya, he said, after you convert, you're my wife. After I become or after she becomes, whether it's a Yisrael saying this Shifcha Kenanit, or the other way around, whether after they become free. So Lachar Shemu Balech, or after your husband dies. Imagine a guy comes to a married woman, he gives her a kiddushin. He says, "This is your kiddushin after your husband dies, right? Or after your sister dies, right? And basically, the sister was still alive, and now she's going to die. So he comes to the sister-in-law and says, after your sister dies, or after you do chalitza with your yavam." And I'm all these cases is nothing. And why? Because right now he's makneh davar shelo ba'olam. It's still not in the world because at the time right now, status quo, there's nothing. So there's nothing here. So Elmaleh comes and he says. So therefore, basically, what he was trying to say is that right now, the fact that she's still there's a zikat to the yavam. So therefore, right now, nobody could even be called kiddushin tosimba. So if we already learned this in the Mishnah kiddushin, so what are you coming and telling me? A chabura, they came and they learned it. So Elmaleh, so Diana comes, the answers of Yochanan, his student, la the Delilah chaspa, right? If I wouldn't have picked up a piece of pottery, right, which is showing, covering a margalit, covering like a jewel, right? Would you have actually found this beneath it? Which means, if it wouldn't be that I would have taught you that en kiddushin tochsim levama, you wouldn't have explained the Mishnah that way. Meaning, only after I already taught you the halacha, the kiddushin is not tochsim levama. Now, when you learn that Mishnah, and then you're going to click and you're going to say, this is what says in Mishnah. But if I wouldn't have taught you that before, you wouldn't have explained the Mishnah in such a way to say that that's halacha. So you understand? I mean, that's what happens many times. For example, you teach somebody halacha, and now that you say halacha, yeah, but Rabbi, we just learned it there. So you're right. Now that you know the halacha in A, now you apply it to B. But if I wouldn't have taught you A, you wouldn't have known that's what the B is talking about. So Amar Shakish says, Shakish Rabbi Yochanan, he loved the kalsach gavra Rabba, hava mina lachanan, matznitin Rabbi Kiva. He says, if it wasn't the Rabbi Yana that he came and he praised you. Rabbi Yana, your Rebbe, came and he praised you. I would have answered you that there's no proof bichlal for that Mishnah. That means I would have told you, what are you talking about? Why? Matzniti Rabbi Akiva. That Mishnah is going to Rabbi Akiva. That entire Mishnah was going to Rabbi Akiva that it's all chayvelan. And that's why it's not going to be thing. So what are you talking about? So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? How could that be that? So he says, right, Rabbi Akiva, if it was Rabbi Akiva, when he said that after the chalitza, right from the Yevamos, it should be nipasta kiddushin. Rabbi Akiva holds a person is makneh davar shelo ba'olam. The Tanakh is learned in Mishnah Nedarim, right? So the Gimel Amudalef, the person is going to come and say any type of melacha that I'm going to do is going to be a surah to your mouth like a korban, which means that he's being oseh Masechet al bala, right? Which means that she prohibited her anat Masechet to her husband. And she doesn't even have to do a farat nedarim, right? That means basically why? Because a woman cannot prohibit this with a neder. Rabbi Akiva says no, he does have to do a farat nedarim. Shema tadif alav yoter min haruim. Why? Because maybe Masechet is going to be more than what really she's obligated to do for the husband. And the fact that she's going to do a little bit more extra, the fact of what she has to do for the husband, so therefore it is going to be chal neder. Therefore he does have to do hafarat nedarim. So it comes out that according to the words of Rabbi Akiva, that if she's going to do extra, right, it is, even though it's davar shelo ba'olam, adamak davar shelo ba'olam. So therefore you see from here that even according to Shitat of Rabbi Akiva, it is going to be chal kiddushin because a person could be makneh davar shelo ba'olam. So then we're going to answer tomorrow the entire concept about whether it is, whether it's not.